Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Beck with Books and Tuxedos, and this is going to be my August reading wrap-up. So overall in the month of August, I read 8 books. So it ended up being 3,244 pages. Overall, I ended up giving 2 5 stars, 5 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, and I had 1 DNF. Overall, the mix of fiction versus nonfiction, I ended up reading 5 fiction books and 3 nonfiction, which is definitely more nonfiction. I kind of have a loose goal of reading at least 1 nonfiction per month, but due to nonfiction book club, I think that was the big inspiration to read some of the books I did read. And then my top genres were horror, thriller, and science. So definitely a little bit of a mix of genres that I don't always pick up, specifically with science. So I thought it would be fun to kind of go through the 8 books that I read and rank them in order of would recommend. So this is just going to go in order of how likely I would be to recommend the book just to anyone, widely recommend. So I did also have the 1 DNF for the month, so I guess I will mention the DNF was The Covenant by Beverly Lewis. I was trying to do this readathon challenge thing, and one of the prompts was to read a Amish romance. I got about 50% into this and was just not vibing with it and gave up. So no regrets on that. So to start the list, the book that I would widely recommend the most would be Dial A for Aunties. This was just a really cute, cozy mystery. We follow Medi Chan and just her family. She's working in the wedding industry with her aunties, and one of her aunties sets her up on a blind date. She ends up going on the date, and long story short, ends up killing the guy. So her aunties are then brought in to help her essentially dispose of the body while they're also working at a wedding. So it's very it's goofy, fun, lighthearted. Obviously there's a murder, but it's not scary at all. I would recommend this to fans of Finlay Donovan, and if you just want a something lighthearted to read, I thought this was a good time. It does have a island resort type setting too, which was fun. I think this was a good summer read. I definitely want to continue in the series because I did really like the main character, and all of the aunties were super funny. So I ended up giving this 4 stars. And by the way, I'm not necessarily going in order of star ranking, because just because it was a higher star ranking for me doesn't mean I would universally recommend it. So yeah, that's the order I'm going in there. And then next up, I did read The Day the World Stopped Shopping, and I actually accidentally deleted this intro on the video when I first filmed it, so we're gonna jump back to past me to tell you about The Day the World Stopped Shopping. Like I was saying, this is basically just, as it says, how ending consumerism saves the environment. I think this is a really good place to start, actually, if you are interested in this topic in general and you want something that is approachable. I thought he gave a good job of just stating facts about how consumerism is harmful, but also what the effects would be on the world in general if this was something that we weren't as reliant on. And something that I also kind of thought was really interesting here too was just kind of acknowledging how a lot of our consumerism and our I guess, like, keeping up with the Joneses, for lack of a better way to say it, is a very, like, Western idea, whatever. Yeah, this was a really interesting nonfiction. I ended up giving this 4. What did I give this? Yeah, I rated this 4 stars. I feel like I had to check because nonfiction's kind of hard for me to rate sometimes. I feel like with, like, memoirs, I ended up, like, always giving them 5 stars. I'm not sure what else I would have wanted from this to bump it up to a 5-star. Kind of very different book, but similar, like I've said with some other books I've reviewed, just didn't have that kind of 5-star feeling. This is one that I checked out from the library that I would buy a physical copy of this, because I think this is something that revisiting in the future I could even gain more from as well, and I think it'll be interesting to see how this is relevant in future years. I think there's definitely been some more talks about how companies like, you know, Temu and Shein and all that, like, are bad, but I don't see a big, like, collective action for it as of now, so I guess it'll be interesting to see if that happens. But yeah, this is just one I would generally recommend, I think, if that's a topic that someone is interested in learning more about. I think that would be a good place to start. And then next up on just widely recommend, I would put The Devil Takes You Home. I really liked this. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I think this one I would just put a little bit lower on who I would widely recommend it to, just because it was kind of an interesting genre mix between, like, thriller, heist, suspense, horror, but also having some, like, supernatural type elements to it as well. So I think I might recommend it to, you know, a reader that's kind of open to a various, like, blend of genres. But overall, we essentially follow this man who is grieving a loss and ends up on this, like, heist for the cartel. So it's just a really interesting exploration of what people do to kind of deal with their grief. And it also has, like, Spanish throughout the book as well, which was a really interesting I guess choice, you know, by the author as well, but I think it's a good way to kind of immerse yourself in different cultures and learn as well. So I did have a good time looking up, like, translations on Google Translate. I feel like it's made me more kind of knowledgeable as well. And it's just really interesting kind of how he did the Spanish phrases throughout as well. I don't know why, especially on, like, the fight scenes, I was like, oh, I'm kind of, like, invested now. So yeah, overall I would definitely recommend this if you like horror, especially, like, horror that examines grief and you're a big, like, thriller suspense person. I think this will definitely work for you. And then next up is another horror, Mary. I talked about this in my vlog as well. I ended up giving this 5 stars. This was amazing. I could talk about this for a long time, but considering my battery is low right now, we gotta get to the point. So this follows a middle-aged woman, Mary, and she's moving back to her hometown, and things start getting really interesting. We'll leave it at that. I just really love this. The writing is beautiful, and it's just such an interesting idea. I don't know, it's just so different from anything else I've read before. If you like body horror, I would recommend this for sure. Also the reason it's a little bit low on universal recommendations is just this will not work for if you are not a person that really loves horror. I don't think that you would be a fan of this. Definitely recommend to people that are familiar with Stephen King's work as well. I actually have not read, this was based loosely based off Carrie. I haven't read Carrie. I think I've seen the movie once, maybe, but like I know the general concept. So if you are a big Carrie fan, I think this is definitely worth checking out. And just kind of the niche horror group of people that like unreliable narrators and body horror. And then next up would be Berserk. I did read the first deluxe edition. This is definitely dark, which is why it's a little bit lower on the list. But if you're a manga fan, you want to read classic manga and you like horror, definitely pick up Berserk. The action scenes are really fun. I'm just really interested to kind of delve into the backstory and kind of see where this is going, but definitely a really solid and intriguing first volume. I mean, I know obviously this is the deluxe edition, so it has multiple volumes, but I am intrigued and I'm going to continue the series. Overall, I ended up giving this 4 stars just because I'm kind of guessing where things are going to go and how future volumes are probably going to be 5 stars. So excited to continue with this. And then next up is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. Another horror that's a bit of a niche horror as well. I ended up giving this 5 stars. Like, I absolutely love this. Overall, would recommend to people that are very into like horror movies, especially like old school horror movies as well, which is why this was also a little bit lower on the list, that I wouldn't universally recommend. But even that as well, just the way that Stephen Graham Jones writes is very universal, or not universal, like very niche. So I think that if you did not like My Heart is a Chainsaw, you probably won't like this. I think that you would know within the first like 30 to 50 pages if this works for you or not. Because I've seen such a bunch of mixed reviews, and even like the people that gave it like 2-3 stars and just felt like it didn't work for them, I kind of see why. So if you're not vibing with the storytelling style and the writing style, this might just not be for you, but it definitely worked for me and I love this a lot. And then next up would be Silent Spring. I read this for a nonfiction book club. The reason I would put this as not as much of a universal recommendation is I think it's a good like environmental like text that people reference a lot, but even in kind of book club they were talking about how even people within the movement like mention this a lot, but it's like, has anyone actually read the whole book? Because it's kind of like repeating topics multiple times. It's more essay collections than like a whole body of work, and I feel like I kind of got the point she was making within the first couple essays, and then there was just a lot of like repeating. It's also pretty dense. Like, I wouldn't say this is the most accessible. I have recently, like as of the books I'm mentioning in this video, recently started reading about environmentalism and global warming and just being conscious of things in general, which has mainly been sparked by nonfiction book club. But overall, I just don't think this was the best place to start my journey into learning about the movement. Obviously, she's a very smart, intelligent lady and she knows a lot, but this was just not the best for me. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. And then last up on books I would recommend would be The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. I did end up giving this, like making it 4 stars. I just wouldn't universally recommend this because it kind of gave me a lot of existential dread, which is the point. This is about global warming and talking about the effects of global warming, but it is very like doomsday-y, which we kind of talked about in book club as well. And it's just, I felt like it needed to be more clear at the beginning that he was talking about this is what happens if we don't do nothing. And I feel like the way he wrote it was very much like this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And it was very very bleak, which I understand global warming is a reality, no, that is sad. But I feel like it needed some type of hope. There was like a little 10-page at the end that he was kind of talking about things, but like not really. And then he randomly mentioned aliens. Yeah, I think that this would be a good, like, overview for maybe a good overview. Like, if you were unaware of how bad global warming was and you wanted to know how bad it was, I guess this could be a place to start. Because it does seem like a lot of the topics in general that are mentioned around it are very, like, niched into one thing. So I guess that could be good, like, if you just wanted to learn about the crisis happening in terms of the oceans and the wildfires and climate changes, and it talks about, like, plagues of warming and dying oceans, you know? But it's just, like, such small snippets into this is what the problem is going to be, let's jump on to the next topic, that it was just very, like, I don't know what other way to describe this other than, like, doomsday-y. This is one that I also checked out from the library that I probably wouldn't go out and buy a physical copy. I just don't really see myself revisiting this, but there are some other works surrounding this topic that I have been recommended to pick up that I think would be better places to start. So overall, that's my reading for August. If you made it this far in the video, let me know what your favorite book that you read this month was. If you didn't read anything this month, let me know out of these books which ones you would consider picking up. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in a video really soon. Bye!